This is Sir David Attenborough, famous naturalist and narrator of Planet Earth. You are listening to the Booty League podcast.
What's up, guys? We're back for week one of the Booty League podcast. I'm David. I'm joined with Chris and a special guest, James. What's up,
What's up,
guys?
y'all?
So
What's
what's
up,
up?
man?
Isn't it
It
isn't it great to have football back? I'm I'm like
feels like
so
Christmas is
stoked.
here, man.
I
Yeah, so
know.
excited.
I know it's
So
on
excited.
Tuesday. I'm ready to
The,
see a beatdown on
it's been a
Thursday.
long summer.
Yeah. I was telling Chris last week, but I was waiting for football since like August or something. But it's finally here. Yeah, we have a few quick questions to start off the pod in regards to the draft we just had. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we jump right in?
Um, no, I'm excited. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah, let's get into it. Draft is pretty exciting, so can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, so our first question is what is your favorite pick outside the first three rounds? And I'll preface this by saying you can either say your favorite pick from your own team or your favorite pick from someone else's team.
Okay.
Okay, I got you.
So I'll just start off. For me, my favorite pick is Curtis Samuel in the eighth for my own team. Moving to Washington. I think it's Washington, right? He
Yeah.
has the same head coach, Ron Rivera, so he even though he's been a little injured, he knows the system from Carolina, so I think he'll hit the ground running. And my favorite pick outside of my own team is I would say on Chris's team, Damien Harris in the sixth. I was really high on him, and Cam Akers in the 12th because it like totally escaped my mind to pick up someone and put it in my IR spot. So I thought that was really smart.
Um, I'll jump in next, but before we jump into that, banking off of what David just picked, Chris, did you think you were getting a steal off of Royce when he wanted to swap your Brandon Ayuk for a fourth round pick?
That's right. We did have that trade, and yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I'll take a fourth rounder. But then when it came down to it, I think with all the keeper value and stuff like that, um, I took Damien Harris, and that was pretty much like a fifth or sixth rounder, anyways, right? So there wasn't too much value, even though I know you guys were like kind of grinding Royce's gears over it. I thought that was a good move by him, and it kind of worked out. I would say I partially lost because I was pretty big on Ayuk, and there's no one I really wanted and had to settle for Harris.
Who are you aiming for when you initially like proposed that trade?
I'll tell you that in one of the questions coming up, but it's gonna go with who I was hoping to fall for me. So that's one of our questions that
All
are
right.
gonna come up.
All right. So for me, my favorite pick would be T. Higgins, who I took in the fourth. I was pretty big on T. Higgins last year. And I'm hoping and I'm also believing that he's gonna take the next step. I know this all hinges on Joe Burrow having a good year, coming off of that pretty bad knee injury, but I have faith and I think T. Higgins will help that healing process for Joe. Get him back on his feet. Outside of my team, though, I think Vintuk had a great pick with Logan Thomas in the 13th round. Um, Me personally, I'm very high on Logan Thomas, especially when it comes to how many snaps he was playing last year. I think he's going to be a staple in the offense still, even with the arrival of Curtis Samuel. So I think for me personally, outside of the top 5 or 6 tight ends that everyone thinks was a pretty sure lock, I think Logan Thomas is right behind that group.
And I'm gonna echo that. I agree that outside of my draft, I agree with the Logan Thomas pick. I know James and I were just looking at Trail like, why did we pick these tight ends if Logan Thomas was just gonna drop to the 13th, right? Like we had so many other options that routes we could have gone in and still ended up with Logan Thomas late, like that late.
Yeah.
Um, for my team, I thought it was the Cam Akers pick as well. I know Jonathan was like, "Oh, I'm gonna shock the league." And
He said that
in my
like two
notes,
rounds ago.
in my notes, it was like Cam Akers in the 12th. Like if Cam Akers is there, I'm taking him in the 12th. So, um, that and I think I'm pretty big on Jamal Williams because I know he ate into Aaron Jones's production. So, if the Detroit Lions want to run the ball, then I think Jamal Williams is going to play a pretty big part in that role on the offense. So our next question is, what was your least favorite pick? And let's go back on David. What was your least favorite pick?
Again, I mean, I don't mean to like bag on Royce too much, but I think James Robinson in the second is like I think he could have. It's not like a bad pick, but I think he could have gotten it back on the turn. And I think I'll go more into this when we get to his matchups. But I think he could have had maybe AR there, and instead of Julio Ayuk, it would have been AR Ayuk, which would I think push Ayuk from being his maybe breakout wide receiver one, being to his wide receiver two, with AR holding it down as his wide receiver one. But again, I mean it's not a bad pick, but I think he could have been a little bit greedier. And for my own team, I think Hines in the ninth is not too great of a pick for me, but in the moment I was really lacking a running back two depth, so I was just going for a floor running back two, which is like Hines and Geo. But in hindsight, I might have gone for more of a lottery pick there, with because you can just pick up these guys off the waiver.
For my team, least favorite pick would be probably Michael Gallup in the 10th. He's pretty feast or famine his whole career. I'm not sure that changes, especially with the ascension of CD Lamb. So Michael Gallup probably the first on the chopping block come week 2 waivers. Outside of that, I think this might be bold, but I think the worst pick made in the draft was by Michael taking Mike Gesicki in the 10th. I don't know how many games Michael watched with Gesicki. They're all not highlights. I'll preface that. I had Gesicki last year. It was pretty frustrating seeing him on the field only for like maybe 50% of the game and getting maybe 4 targets at the most. The excitement is there definitely, but I think with obviously with hindsight, Logan Thomas was still on the board. I would have gone with Logan Thomas at that pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Maybe I would have gone with Logan Thomas or even Higby going a few picks later. Might have gone in that direction. Logan, or what's his name? Gasecki was because he left a sour taste in our mouth after last year, so it could be biased, but yeah, I agree with your take.
That was my pick too. And with the Mike Gesicki pick, because I would have rather had Tunyon, Thomas, Higby. Like I think all those three guys are above the board, over Gesicki. Um,
Who were you hoping to fall to you the most in the draft? I'll go first. I have Damien Harris hoping to fall to me because I don't think Chris would have or Royce would have picked him there if it wasn't for the swap, and I'm not sure anyone would have picked him there in the fourth. So I was hoping he'd come back to me in the fifth. Or if I didn't get him, Sony Michelle was my backup plan, and I didn't get either of them because I think they were drafted a little bit higher than I thought they would be drafted.
Okay. For me, the one that I was hoping to fall to me the most was George Kittle in the 3rd. I was really surprised that you went with him, David. Uh, leading up to the draft, I was talking to Chris, like, he was asking me like what kind of scenarios you're looking for at the 2-3 turn. And I was talking to him, oh, hopefully AR falls to me. Hopefully like Kittle's still there. I didn't expect Royce to take James Robinson,
I
so
did that threw everything. That moved everything. Like
yeah, so like the 1% chance of this scenario of DeAndre Swift and George Kittle being on the board, I was not I was not banking on that happening. And so when it did fall into my lap, I took the gamble. I wanted the running back. I thought George Kittle was gonna fall to me, especially since you um didn't have a 4th round pick, so I was very surprised.
yeah, going off of that, I was in exactly 0 mock drafts where I picked up a tight end where I was, and so I didn't plan for this at all. But there he was sitting right in front of me, in the third. But I did consider. I mean, like I'll be stacking George Kittle and Mahomes, my positions I can get elsewhere, and lacking depth in wide receiver and running back. But I thought I could make it up with either Mostert, um, or Damien Harris, my running back, and there's like value wide receivers anywhere, so I thought I'd just pull the trigger. But in hindsight, those guys didn't fall to me.
Guys that I wanted to drop to me were Robert Woods, Cup, and Lockett. Those are like my big three targets. Like when making that trade with Royce, I was
Oh,
hoping
I see.
one of those guys would drop to me, and I would like secure my two wide receivers and my flex for pretty much the year.
When
Um,
did you pull the trigger on that trade? Was that after the Kelsey pick?
that was after the Kelsey pick. Yeah, I think in hindsight, he was willing to. I think I could have pushed it to like right before his pick, and I was like, hey, like let's make the trade now, and just to lock up one of those players I
Mm,
wanted. But
yeah.
yeah, I haven't dealt with a draft trade ever, so that
Yeah.
was my first
Rookie
experience with it.
mistake.
Anyway, hopefully I learned from that. And then the person I really wanted to drop the team was AJ Dillon. Yeah, AJ Dillon instead of Jamal Williams, and Nick took him. I tried to trade for him too. So far, and so far no luck.
Yeah. Who do you think had the best draft? I'll start off with this. I mean, like it's hard to judge this question because so many people had like really good keepers. And so I kind of I don't know about you guys, but I excluded their keepers out of this a little bit just to see like who had like really the most well-rounded team. And I thought he has the most well-rounded team because I like love running backs. Like I think wide receivers you can just pick them up off the waiver wire, like, and they'll be like serviceable. But running backs you cannot pick up off the waiver wire. And I would say he has like four running backs in the top 24 on his team, which is really good. And he also has CD Lamb um, on a breakout campaign supposedly this year. So I think his team is set, and he can just spin off one of his running backs for a wide receiver in the future. So I think he has really good value there.
I think David like touched on a really great point. I think our league is only getting better, especially when it comes to draft day. Now that we're all we're more or less using the same resources, but like we are definitely as a whole really good drafters. Like even like the best and the worst drafts aren't very far off to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, we lost James. Why don't you
um,
go, Chris?
yeah,
Oh, he's back. He's
I
back.
just
He's
built off that where oh
yeah.
yeah,
Um sorry. So I think all in all, like even like the worst drafter in our league could probably do well in a public league. So, but with that said, I think Jonathan had the best draft. I like looking at the first five picks as your foundation to your team, and you can kind of move in with the ebb and flow of the draft from there. But I think Jonathan has the scariest team from head to toe. Whether it is the depth at wide receivers, I think his lottery tickets are the best ones. To his running backs, I think those running backs will be serviceable. And in case he does need to fall back on them, I think they are really good options on their respective teams.
I agree with all that. I leaving the draft, I was like, man, this is one of the most competitive drafts we have. Like, there's no one where I'm like pitting as like, all right, they're the toilet, or they're gonna win the ship. I think as long as everyone stays on top of the league and the waiver and makes moves, like I think this is anyone's league right now, right? And in other years, you've seen people with some teams
Oh,
they're gonna end up
people popping in and out of the.
they're gonna end up in yeah, and there's some years where people just end up in the toilet, and you're like, oh yeah, we predicted they're gonna be in the toilet. My favorite drafter was either Jonathan or Royce. To be honest, like I know the James Robinson pick was a big like talk, but it really was like get your guy in the value because our league so favors running back so much for Royce. And then he made that trade that I think kind of put his team in a good position. For Derrick Henry, James Robinson, like Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk, which I'm really big on Kyle Pitts. So maybe it's more because I'm kind of fans of his players, and also Jonathan with all the same sentiments that James had. Worst drafts. What do you think?
It could just be a little biased, but I think I had like a pretty bad draft, but some people, I'm just a little hard on myself because some people didn't fall to me. My team is a little weak everywhere, and I'm like a little top heavy where I am at, and so I'm just not happy about how my draft turned out. I mean, besides the low hanging fruit Marcus, but yeah, I'm just not happy where my draft fell.
Did you tilt at all during the draft?
I didn't tilt, but it's more like, well, the guys I was hoping to fall like fell like 5 picks away, so it wasn't like James sniped me or anything, you know.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
I think for me, I think Ty has had the worst draft, and again, it's not by a very wide margin. I just think comparing his team to everyone else's team, his was the least scary. And especially like Amari Cooper, not Amari Cooper, sorry, Odell Beckham. I think most of our league is off of him. But again, I think I'll get more into detail with Ty's draft in a later segment.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty big on Odell, and I was hoping he'd fall to me. So, but my least favorite draft, Ty was up there, but I guess I would say Michael. Um, I'm not really a fan of. I'm not a fan of Godwin anymore, so maybe it's just me. Like I think there's like other tier wide receivers that I would rather drafted in like Cup and Cooper. Like I would put them probably slightly down in the tier under them. Um, or like they're in the same tier, but yeah, just if I had to rank them myself, I didn't like the Mike Gesicki pick. And yeah, but then again, his team's not like tremendously bad by any means. It's just a couple players that I didn't prefer and weren't on my draft boards.
Yeah, I don't think his team is like bad by any stretch. He had a few inaccuracies, I think, like value wise, but yeah. Nobody is terrible this draft besides Marcus. But a
And
little bit on the
the bot
funner
the
side.
bot the bot did a great job in like the first half. I was like, so low key, I was getting tilted because the bot did a great job, and they finally did the two tight ends and the two quarterbacks. But yeah, we'll talk about that.
I definitely thought there would be 2 quarterbacks before round 7.
You know what's fun? I
Yeah.
don't think he's dropped any of them.
He hasn't.
No, he
He's
hasn't.
kept it, right?
Yeah, he's riding it out.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, kudos to you, Marcus. Yes, your team. Get your guy, all right? But his team was looking pretty freaking scary
Yeah.
after the Dak Prescott pick. It
Yeah.
was scary, but now he has like no depth.
Yeah.
But a little bit jumping into some funner questions. Who do you think has the best team name / player name? I'll go first. I think Kurt Cobain's is probably the best team name because some of the other team names are like team names from last year or like low hanging fruit, like pretty low IQ team names. So I mean, I feel like I think that's Ty's team. Like Ty put some thought into it, and so I like that. Oh, and the
Uh,
best player name, I'll go with Dame Time again, like Najee D's nuts or like any iteration of like Juju Poo Poo Smith Poopster, like or Mike Mo, right? But yeah, that's just any Dame Time is like a good play on words in my opinion.
yeah, you're hating on the Mike Mo memes? 'Cause
I'm
I
the
think
one
the
that
Mike
create.
Mo.
The Mike Mo memes.
No, I mean like it's fine. I mean the best Mike Mo one was Mike Mo P Ryan, and I'll admit that one was like god tier. But
Frankenstein hating his own monster now. For me, I personally love all the Mike Mo memes. I'm hoping that it starts to get into Michael's head. So I love all the Mike Mo memes. Mike Mo Evans, Mike Mo Gallup, Mike Mo Carter. The list goes on. And my favorite team name is definitely CMC Min Time.
That was so good. When I heard that at the draft, that was so good.
These things just come to me, man. I can't help it.
All right, my two names is the Bishop Sycamore. Just that story is so intriguing. Like I can't believe everything you hear from like it's an online school and the whole story. So that's why I like the Bishop Sycamore meme. I do like the Mike Mo meme because it's probably gonna get Michael tilted. I had to double check my roster too to see where I could find a Michael. Um, and then my favorite player nickname was my Black Zach Moss tonight because I think when Vince hit it at the draft, like I was like dying for a good minute.
I was
I feel
cracking
like
up.
that was the reason I didn't pick that one was because I thought that was like a name from last year. Whoever had Zach Moss last year might have said it, but I'm not sure though.
Yeah, but it's an evergreen name.
Yeah.
It's always good year to year.
But our next segment is the 3-word game. We're bringing it back from last year. We'll each have 3 or 4 players each, and we'll each have 3 words to say for everybody's draft night roster. I know everybody's changed up their rosters a little bit, but this is based on draft night rosters. So I'll go first. For Royce, I have James Richardson. But again, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I feel like he could have gotten it on the turn. I don't know if it'll escape me. I don't know if it'll escape James. Would you have picked him on the
I
turn?
wouldn't have picked him up.
Yeah. So then you change from Julio being your wide receiver 1, going to AR, which I think is way better than Julio because Julio's a bit of a risk. He might not even be the wide receiver 1 on his own team. And I think that just changed. He doesn't have a bad roster by any means, but I think that's just changed the dynamic of his roster a little bit. It could have been a little bit better.
All right. I'll go next. My first one will be for Ty, and it's thoughts and prayers. Again, I think Ty had the weakest draft. So when it comes to thoughts, he's gonna need to put in a lot of thought into the trades going into this season to improve his team. I think his team has a lot of room to improve. And he probably has the pieces to make those kind of trades happen too. But in terms of prayers, I'm praying that his players who have had a reputation or have been plagued by injuries in the past stay healthy, such as Keenan, Amari, and Eckler. He's praying that Robert Tonyan isn't a one-year wonder from last year, who was catching touchdowns basically every game, every five catches. So and his last prayer will be for Odell and his bench players to be productive. Again, like I'm off on Odell. I think some of us are off on Odell as well. But if Odell goes off, then he made an excellent pick in the 5th round. But again, like it may or may not happen. So far, his Browns career has not been very spectacular. So
Yeah, I think it's like
Ty.
3 years in a row now that he hasn't really produced. It's been a long time since he's produced, but
Yep.
he's got the name value, and the talent is still there. I think. I'm not sure how old he is, but yeah, I agree.
He's just been injured. He
Yeah,
just can't
he's
be on the
right.
field.
Yep. So knowing our league's luck, Marcus says this one doesn't really count, but auto drafting best strat because knowing our league's luck, he's not gonna make any moves just like Ty did, and he's gonna end up in Booty League championship, and because he doesn't make trades and stuff like that. So that's just our league's luck, and it's gonna be like a meme again, right? Like
Is,
auto drafting is the best strategy.
is he still on vacation? Why has he not made any moves? Like he hasn't
I
dropped.
think he made one ad, but it's been pretty quiet.
Oh, okay.
So his team hasn't changed much.
So mine is like it's long, but like if you include this in parentheses, right? Name a better duel, and it's Michael and rookie running backs. Every year,
True.
dude. Zeke, Clyde Edwards. I'm pretty sure he drafted last
Yeah,
year, and like
he did.
Najee, like he's always reaching for that rookie running back potential, and we'll see how that plays out for him because he's been a perennial bottom sixer or toilet bowl player. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, circling back to me. Here we go. I have Nick, and Nick's 3 words is Nick always gambling. Why? Because picking Saquon in the first round, assuming he'll return last year's production and sustain the full load, initially is a gamble. I think. David Montgomery, repeating the second half of his last year is a gamble. I think, and the rest of the picks 7 through 12, AJ Dillon, Pittman, Damien Williams, Jalen Rager, who's this? Traquan Smith, I think. They're all lottery picks. I mean, I have nothing against lottery picks, but having Saquon and on my team and him perhaps getting off to a slow start, I might have wanted more of a floor there. And so I have Nick always gambling.
All right, my next guy will be Vintuk. His 3 words will be playing for endgame. I think
Mm,
he had a really good start to his draft. Definitely in the top half of strong drafts, in my opinion. But I think in the second half of the year, I'm not praying for injuries, but injuries do happen. This is a longer season. I think Vintuk is set up to have a really strong second half of the year. I think it's only a matter of time for Javonte to take over the reins from Melvin Gordon. JD McKissick had a really strong back half of last year, and I think that can continue too if Antonio Gibson, um, you know, continues to be hobbled on and off the field. ETN's coming back in a couple months, so there is the realm of possibility that he overcomes this injury and stays productive, and that also goes for Rashad Bateman as well, who I think is probably primed for a really good opportunity given the wide receiver situation in Baltimore.
Is he coming back?
I have no idea. I wouldn't, if I was their front office, I wouldn't bring him back.
Okay, I thought he's ACL. But besides the point, okay, my next guy is
Oh, is
my
his ACL? Might be.
Oh yeah, ineligible for 2021 after being placed on IR.
okay,
Okay.
but yeah, I think the three of us went for keeper value that between him, Jonathan, and I. All right, so my next person is my co-host David, and it's WR1 wide receiver one. Please stand up. So we have all these arguably wide receiver ones that you don't know if their quarterback can keep up their production. Like you have Marcus Callaway right now. He's supposed to be the wide receiver one coming out of camp. Corey Davis, and then you have Mike Evans and Brandon Cooks. They're supposed to be the alpha wide receivers, but Mike Evans has too many mouths to feed. You have like quarterback situations in the other three camps. So yeah, these are the wide receiver ones, but are they going to produce, and how well are they going to produce for Davis' team?
Yeah, that's also definitely a concern of mine too, which is why I drafted them all.
Your lottery
I'm like
tickets.
I'm like shooting in the dark here, you know. So this is again, it circles back to like draft day strategy, like. So I knew Mike Evans might not return value, so I was just shooting in the dark here. Let's see. I'll go next. Oh, right here. Chris, my co-host Chris. I have for him RB2 roulette. I think Chris is like kind of like the flip side of me, where I'm rouletting wide receivers. He's rouletting running backs. He has Gus Edwards, Trey Sermon, Damien Harris. Is this Javante? So they're all
That's
running back
Jamal.
twos, and he's just hoping that one of them breaks through and returns RB1 value, because honestly, that's the only spot that Chris is hurting. So RB2 roulette.
All right, next up for me will be Timmy, and in the wise words of ASAP Ferg, his 3 words are Prezi playing Jane.
Oh,
I think Timmy has hit it out of the park with his first 2 picks with Devontae Adams and Tyreek
He
Hill.
got that from the pod last week. That wasn't from him.
But I mean, either way, like I think those two can carry his team pretty far. But I also think that his more plain Jane kind of picks, like Jacobs, Hendog, Melvin Gordon, they're kind of unexciting, especially in the fantasy football community. But I think these guys are very underrated. I think Josh Jacobs has an unproven offensive line, but I think they are better than average. I think Henderson will get the bulk of the carries, even though Sonny Michel's in town. And at least for the first, I'm predicting for the first half of the season, as long as Melvin Gordon stays healthy, I think he's the alpha in that offense. Um, and so outside of that, I think Russ is going to have a great year, just as always. So that's for Timmy.
I see. Yeah, good.
And I have James next. And I kind of my 3 picks all have different wide receiver situations. So James is ambiguous wide receiver situations, WR situations, and his is Robert Woods, T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Will Fuller, Gallup, and Ruggs. They're all not the wide receiver one technically, right? Like Robert Woods, like it could be Robert Woods, it could be Cooper Kupp. T. Higgins, it could be T. Higgins coming out, but you have all this camp talk about Jamar, and you have Tyler Boyd there. So is Higgins going to take the second year leap and be the alpha? Cortland Sutton was the alpha, but this Judy takeover, and Will Fuller comes in to Devontae Parker was the alpha there last year, but you also drafted a young wide receiver. Gallup's the third wide receiver in his team, and Ruggs is he going to be that second wide receiver for his team? So a lot of just like David, a lot of but not a guaranteed wide receiver one that can keep up production. I would say James has people that can keep up the offense, but is the ball going to get? We don't know their wide receiver situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. Circling back to me, my last one is also James. I have kind of a different take on James' team. My 3 words are destination, value town, because you got Mark Andrews in the 5th. You have Kyler in the 9th, which is pretty good value. One of his later lottery picks is Ramondre Stevenson in the 12th. That's a really good pick, and I think James beat me to the punch, having beating everybody to the punch, picking up the Rams in the 13th. And T. Higgins in late 4th is also a great value. So I think James has values at every pick in the draft.
All right. For my last guy, it's gonna be Jonathan, and my 3 words to describe his team is attack on Titan. Being last year's champion, everyone has Jonathan in their sights as the big target to beat. And I think his title defense started off with a really strong draft. He is my pick for the best draft. I think his first 5 picks, his foundational pieces are solid, and they should have pretty high floors. Tyler Lockett, I think, has a pretty good ceiling play along with Aaron Jones, and Nuck. So I think his first 5 foundational pieces are really locked in and loaded. But I also think that his carousel of wide receivers, and the rest of his team have a pretty good shot of being pretty impactful. I think Debo is a lot better than a lot of people are souring on. I have a pretty high opinion of Debo. I think Jalen Waddle will have a pretty big impact on his team. Even though he is a rookie, I think he's pretty electric. Tony Pollard, I think we'll start to see. I think Tony Pollard will get more work than Jamal Williams did when Mike McCarthy was coaching in Green Bay, and of course Josh Allen in the 10th. I don't think you can get any better value than that.
Yeah, definitely.
And to wrap it up, the last person that needs a 3-word to them, and just on the same theme. Luckily, all my people I'm describing have kind of a similar situation. So Nii is number 2 wide receivers, and unlike David, where he had all the wide receiver ones, James had ambiguous wide receiver situations. Nii has all number 2 wide receivers on his team. He has Adam Thielen, which you can see he lost his spot to Justin Jefferson being the alpha. CD is still a second-year player, and I think Amari Cooper shouldn't be slept on. A lot of fantasy analysts have put Amari Cooper like way, pretty underneath CD,
Yeah.
and he's still the dude. Jamar Chase, I don't think is the first, maybe even the second wide receiver. There, Jarvis Landry is second to OBJ, and Mike Williams is currently right. You don't know the wide receiver situation there. I don't, at least, but Mike Williams has been the number 2 wide receiver to Keenan Allen. So all his wide receivers are the number 2 wide receivers for his team. So looking at whether his those quarterbacks can keep up a high-powered enough offense to support 2 wide receivers.
Yeah. Do you guys have any shot bets to make before we jump into the matchups?
I got one. I believe the trade winds have been blowing in our league.
True.
It started at the draft. I believe there were 2 trades on the board or on the table, and one went through. And so ever since the draft, I've heard that trade winds have been blowing pretty strongly between a few people. So my shot bet for this week is there will be one trade before the Sunday game.
One trade.
So
I
what do you want
mean,
to set the line at for there? 0.5 or 1.5?
We'll put it at 0.5. We'll put it at 0.5.
our league is, the winds are blowing, but our league is like
Is that all?
pretty
league is
bearish.
Talk?
It's all. I
Ah.
think our league is all
Yeah.
talk, so I'm taking the under on that one.
Okay. What do you got, James?
I know 90% of this win is coming from our mouths because this league is a lot of talk, but I'm pretty confident there will be one trade that goes through before Sunday's game.
Okay.
I'm may or may not push that into my favor because I do have a horse in it now, but
Oof.
Fair.
I'm pretty sure there will be one trade that goes
That's
through before
insider
Sunday.
trading. All right. We'll see. Or Chris?
I'll take the under too. I don't think anyone's ready for any action, and we're all about that talk. So
Yeah, I think people in this league get a little too attached to the people they draft on draft day. I've already like offered to like do a double swap with someone else, and the people are just not down. So they wanted like that confirmation bias that oh yeah, this guy I drafted was good, rather than
Yeah.
trade the first week.
Yep.
But we'll see.
So we'll put that. If you're listening to this, we'll put that poll in the Facebook group when the video comes out, and then you guys can vote too. So to join for our shot bets again. What one shot bets you pay on Snapchat, and then anything over 3, you have to send a video to David or I.
Yeah, so we can put it up on the pod.
Any other shot bets you guys good?
Yep, I'm good.
All
I'm
right,
good.
so let's jump into the matchups. First matchup we got this week is Vintuk and Royce. James, who do you got?
For this one, I have Royce. I know Royce is the perennial underdog in our league, but I think he's turned the leaf. I think you know, he to me had a surprisingly good draft. I think he took some pretty nice gambles with Kyle Pitts. And then Lamar Jackson in the 5th is pretty much market price for our league, but it is Lamar. And with the way their passing game's starting to look right now, health wise, and the running back situation as well, I think a lot of the workload will be put on Lamar Jackson. And I expect Lamar to have a hell of a game against my boys on Monday night. And top to bottom, I think I like his matchups a lot more as well. Derrick Henry against the Cardinals, James Robinson against Houston. So I'm taking Royce on this one.
Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I also have Royce taking this one too. Vin has Kamara, but Kamara, that's supposed to be a home game, but because of Ida, I think Kamara and the entire Saints offense really will be kind of out of sorts due to like local issues and just not being comfortable, like sleeping in a hotel, practicing in a different stadium. I don't think, and Kamara has to get used to a new quarterback. On the flip side, I think James Robinson has a pretty soft Texan defense to carve up. And I don't know if Urban Meyer will let Burrow like throw a lot, in his first game. So that'll be good for James Robinson. AR facing the Rams defense and Jalen Ramsey. I don't think he'll like put up too high of a points, but the keys for Vin to win is Justin Herbert has to repeat his record-breaking rookie season, and it like has to not be a fluke, and AJ Brown has to establish himself as an alpha over Julio, which I think Royce has. So Vin has to win both those matchups, the QB and the wide receiver matchup, to have a chance.
Okay.
Who you got, Chris?
And I'm gonna go with Royce. I think all three of us are taking Royce here. I just think his team looks really good with keeper value in comparison to Vin's. But I agree with all of your statements, so I don't want to get too repetitive with that. But that leaves all three hosts this week. I'm going with Royce. All right,
All
next
right,
one.
before we move on, I'm curious. Do you guys think Kyle Pitts is the real deal? We're gonna find out this week, but do you think he's gonna be the real deal?
All right, what are we shot betting? Let's shot bet this one. Kyle Pitts, tight end what?
End of season
End of season?
or
No, 1 week.
1 week. Okay.
Oh, week 1
Who are
against
they?
Philly?
Philly.
Week 1 versus Philly. Is he a top 6 tight end, right? He's drafted to be a top 6 tight end. Do you think he's a top 6 tight end?
I think he is.
I mean, it's not hard being top 6, right? I'd
Well,
say
where was his ADP at?
I-
I mean, what did he get drafted as? 1, 2,
He
3.
was
he's
drafted
drafted
to
at
be
like
fifth.
5th, I think,
All right, top 5 finish. Is he
against
finishing in
Philly.
the top 5? Yeah.
I say he
I
won't
think
finish. I say he won't finish top 5.
really. I think he's better than tight end 5 this week.
Okay.
I think this is just my opinion, but it's not so much that he's a bad tight end, right? It's just he's bad at that ADP, He's a good tight
Yeah.
end. He's just not like it. He's
All right,
drafted
should we
like
do-
he's been there, but he hasn't
should-
been there.
Do you want to do a points finish then, David? Would you be more comfortable? Like,
Yeah.
let's say, will he get over 12 points?
I'd say he doesn't get over 8 points.
Whoa.
12 points. Let's go 11 and a half. How you guys feel
All right,
about that?
let's go. Okay, I'll
Let's
go
split the
under
difference. Put
then.
it at 10.
10. Okay, let's put it at 10.
Split the difference.
You
Put it
don't
at
even
10.
think he can get an 8, so 10 points. Kyle Pitts.
I-
So we're not gonna do
Not
a
in the
top
first
whatever
game,
finish.
okay? But yeah,
Okay.
I say
So
no.
you said, oh, I said
Do
no.
it.
David's a no. James, what do you got?
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes too. I'll give him 7 points.
So what is this? A one-shot bet then?
Yeah,
What
it's just one
the-
shot bet.
40 yards and a touchdown on 2 catches. I think that's pretty doable.
Okay.
Okay.
I see.
Oh,
Chris versus Marcus.
I can talk about my game
yeah,
last, so you guys can talk about it first.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
I think this is gonna be a really close one. But I think I have Marcus and the Machines beating Chris. I slightly like Marcus's
That's
matchups.
good.
Again, slightly. I think I like his matchups a little bit more. But I think the big thing that needs to happen though for Marcus to win is for Kenny Galladay to show that he's healthy and healthy enough to outdo this Denver Broncos defense, who looks pretty good on paper and has showed up during the preseason. But also in that game as well, Marcus needs Noah Fant to have a good game. Noah Fant has kind of been an afterthought. He's been pretty generic tight end, hit or miss. Touchdown's a great day. Otherwise, 20 yards is a doo-doo day. So I think I'm a little more. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Marcus.
Yeah. I actually have Chris in also a very close matchup. Chris's wide receivers is like pretty scary, like Ridley and Diggs against what is this? Metcalf and Galladay. So it's just I mean, it's just pretty much Diggs against Galladay then, right? And so Chris's wide receivers are scary. Um, and Dak, the quarterback, which is where like a majority of the points is gonna be coming from. I think he hasn't thrown in like maybe a year and a half, and it's going into the Lions Den against Tampa Bay on the day they get their rings. And I think I don't know if you guys saw this, but one of the one of the Cowboys like defense
Cards.
rookies
Oh,
was talking shit on Tom Brady, saying he's a statue, and Tom Brady doesn't like to be like insulted. So
that's true.
I don't think Dak will have a very good game that day, but who knows? So I think Marcus is really well rounded, but I think Chris has that ceiling.
I have myself too. Agreeing with everything you guys said. I think it's going to be a very close matchup, and I also think that the matchup that it's going to go down to is the Hurts Prescott matchup. So
Yeah.
I think depending on how Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott show out. But otherwise, I think I agree with that ceiling call, and that's how I was trying to form my team more or less this year with the wide receivers I took and Travis Kelsey. Um, Next one is Michael and me. I'll go first here. I think I have me winning this one. Um, and I was just looking at his team. It's so weird seeing like Jonathan Taylor in your flex. So he has like Zeke, Jonathan Taylor, and Chris Carson, I believe. Um, and Michael's tight end, Gesicki, and also his flex play of Lavishka don't look like high ceiling plays that he's gonna need to pull off the upset if he would like to pull off this upset this week.
Yeah,
Um,
what do you think?
Yeah, I also think Yi wins this one. Harping back to Michael loving rookies, Michael Michael's guys haven't been there, right? It's just like based on like college tape and like preseason hype. Najee hasn't played a single game in NFL football. Gibson showed flashes last season, but we don't know that he can handle the full load. And Godwin as a wide receiver in a pretty crowded wide receiving core. I mean, Tom Brady has already shown that he loves AB, and I mean, on paper, Godwin is the better wide receiver, but in the locker room, those guys might look up to Mike Evans as like the wide receiver one. So it's hard to tell whether if Godwin will break out in that backfield. And on the flip side, Yi's team is just like all vets, like Elliott, Carson, Thielen. They've all been there. They've all handled the load. And so my only concern with Yi's team is Ryan Tannehill versus Aaron Rodgers, but I think Yi squeaks this one out with just his guys having a better floor.
I'll be marching to the same drum beat as you guys. I think Yi beats Michael this week. Having Jonathan Taylor in the flex is a pretty nice perk when it comes to building out your team. So I think Yi has the starters that you can have more confidence in, just like
Yeah.
David said. But I think Yi also has the sophomores that.
oh,
Yep, we lost him again, but I think yeah, we
there he
get the
is.
point, right?
So Yi, we don't have to really touch on that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Yeah,
think
continue, right?
I think
Or what?
after week 1, we could view Michael's team in a completely different lens if like Najee Gibson like just blows up, Godwin
Yeah.
turns out to be the wide receiver. He could go from like being like bottom tier to like top tier in an
Mhm.
instant, depending on how his chips fall.
I
Yeah.
agree with that too. I agree. I do agree. Like he has the position too. We just don't know enough. And yeah, his team can change. So we have Nick versus Timmy. Um, James, how about you go first here? How do you feel about Nick versus Timmy?
All right, before I freaking lag out again, I think Sleeper has Nick favored in this one, but my pick is gonna be with Timmy, and I don't think this is an upset at all. I I like Timmy's matchups. I think again with Tay and Tyreek anchoring his team, I think they're gonna have a pretty good day. Um, on top of that, um, I I don't think I don't think the matchups are in Nick's favor for this week. Especially with Saquon, question mark if he's 100% healthy again, but he gets to go play Denver. David Montgomery gets the Rams, and as well as Cooper Kupp getting on the flip side the Chicago defense, right? So I think I like Timmy's matchups a lot more, and I don't think this is an upset.
Yeah, I'll go next. I have Nick winning this one out. Um, I'll start off with Timmy's team. Timmy's team is like pretty weak outside of Devontae and Tyreek. I'm just really down on Josh Jacobs and Hendog, and running Gronk out as your tight end in a pretty crowded wide receiving core might not be the best play against Darren Waller on the other side. I just think even with Saquon's pitch count potentially, I think Nick has that higher floor when it like Nick has like a bunch of guys that can score you like 12, whereas Timmy has guys that can score you 20, but also guys that can score you like 7. So I picked Nick for this one.
Okay, and I agree the same. I'm gonna break the tie with Timmy's team. I think Timmy's team. I really like his wide receivers, and I do like that ceiling. Like that's what our kind of conversations have been, right? Timmy's ceiling versus Nick's floor right now.
Hmm.
So I'm I'm harping on that the ceiling is going to hit this week. And I think Timmy needs the matchup to look at is Timmy needing a tight end. I don't know if he's really starting Gronk, but a tight end to hit a respectable amount of points to compete with the Darren Waller difference. So that's our fourth matchup. Before we start, we usually do these matchups for a shot bet between the hosts. Um, James, what do you think? Do you think you should be making picks for the next week's guest? So if the next week's guest has to take your shots too.
Uh, Damn, you're putting me on the spot. Um, so it would be me picking next week's guest.
Well, not that you're picking next week's guest, but do you think like the next week's guest, like has to take shots based on the matchups you've picked, and like like the guests can all work
Oh,
with each other to pick the next week's
like
Uh,
it's
so like
chained.
yeah, like so it's a chain. So like let's say if Ty is the next week guest for some and then he between the point value, like let's say if David has the most points, then myself and Ty have to take shots for the week.
I see. All right.
You get
nah, I make my own bed. I make my own bed.
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
sleep in it. Otherwise, dude, whoever's in front of Royce is gonna bury him.
True.
True. All right.
All right. Good point.
Let's get into the fifth matchup then. We got the brother-in-law bowl. Okay, I'll
Easy
start this.
clap. Easy
Oh man,
clap.
how exciting!
Go
I
ahead.
think I think this one will be close. So how about I'll coin this one for the narrative that it's the brother-in-law bowl. So this will be the match. So we'll throw this up as another shot bet chart between the Kyle Pitts one, and the trades before Sunday.
Hmm.
But it's going to be close. However, I do have David squeaking this one out. Um,
Oh, let's
okay,
go.
I think the quarterback value is a push. I think the running back value, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, is a push. Arguably, right? You have Dalvin Cook versus Cincinnati, and I think New York Jets defense is a little bit better, but it's still CMC. Can't go wrong with that. Um, I'm a big Mostert fan. If he doesn't get hurt, and if DeAndre Swift plays, that's a push. Um, and then you have the ambiguous wide receivers that I talked about. Who's gonna how are they gonna do in their new offenses? Mike Evans, is he gonna be the alpha? Is Robert Woods gonna be how does he come out with a new quarterback? Um, And then you have two top tier tight ends, leaning George Kittle because he was drafted. Is no slouch either. So I would put it down to that flex play, right? So right now it's sitting at Corey Davis and Cortland Sutton, and we'll see how that
with
plays
the
out. But
with a one catch point difference in between them. So
yeah, I think it'll be a really really close matchup. Who would like to go
yeah,
first?
I'll go first. Again, of course, I'll pick myself. I think me and James drafting at 1 and 2. It's gonna be similar power levels, right? We're drafting like the same guys, like right next to each other, and so I think it's just about like roster construction and our flex hitting if they hit. And I'm looking again and I see that defense play again. I have Carolina versus the Jets, which should be a good matchup versus a rookie Zach Wilson, I think it is. And but James has the established Rams defense. So I agree. It comes down to the flex play and the defense play in my opinion. Everywhere else we push.
And for me, I'm picking myself. I think Anhai is always gonna beat up on Nam. So
True.
also since Chris picked David, I think I'm gonna need a new best man. So I'm hosting tryouts again, if anyone's interested. But yeah, just echoing what David said, being 1 and 2 in the draft, we basically have all of our players in similar tiers. Whether it be I have a running back in a higher tier than David's, but he has a wide receiver in a higher tier than one of mine. So I think this does boil down to our flex picks hitting. Um, and there are question marks with both of them, right? Cortland Sutton, is he 100% healthy? Does he have that chemistry with Teddy Bridgewater? Will they do well on an away game? And on the flip side, you have Corey Davis, new team, new quarterback, new offensive system, also playing away. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how our flex players play out, and I think those will be the decision breakers.
All right, let's wrap this up with our last game. We have last year's first versus worst. You got Jonathan versus Ty. David, let's kick it off with you. All right, how are you feeling about this matchup?
I think Jonathan squeaks this one out in a very, very close matchup. Um, I'd say their wide receiving core is like fairly even, same guys in the same type of tier. Ty has like like guys that have just always been consistent throughout their career, and so does Jonathan. Um, and the running backs are fairly even. Eckler versus Jones, Miles Sanders versus Clyde. I'm not sure Clyde is gonna get so much. He has the full trust of Andy Reid yet. In the red zone, and so I think the only difference here is Hawkinson versus Tunyon. Hawkinson again, he has a new quarterback. It's not Matt Stafford throwing to him anymore. There's questions there, but I do have Jonathan squeaking out the victory.
For me, on the flip side, I think it's John. Like Davis is close. I think it's Jonathan. It's not close. I think Jonathan has some high ceiling players that should hit. Um, Tyler Lockett looks like he'll do well. I like the Tyler Hawkinson matchup better than the Robert Sunyan one. Um, and I think Miles Sanders should have a great week against Atlanta.
I hate
Um,
Miles Sanders. Maybe that's just me, but when he was with me, it was never. I'm like so down on Miles Sanders, but that's probably why I'm ranking it so close. But if I had Miles Sanders the same way you guys have him ranked,
Mhm.
maybe I'd be a little bit higher on the matchup.
For me, I'll break the tie. This is pretty romantic how my favorite draft goes up against my least favorite draft, but I
Mm,
think Jonathan runs away with this one. I think his team again, head to toe, is a lot better in a vacuum. But I also like his matchups a lot more. The biggest question mark, and I think what Ty needs to really hit is for CEH to have a much better season this year than his rookie season. Um, Michael can tell you all about how much hype was behind him, drafting him first last year, and how doo-doo it ended up being.
yep.
But I think if Ty wants to win this week, he's gonna need CEH to prove that he was the right pick in his rookie year, being drafted first by the Chiefs, and to have a redemption year and return that kind of value and showcase that kind of talent.
Yeah. So that's it for the week, guys. You guys have anything else to say?
Oh, I'm good over here.
Good luck this year, guys. Half of us are getting the first wins of our year, which is always the hardest one.
True.
So good luck to everybody. I think it's gonna be a great year.
Yeah, good luck, everybody. Thank God football is back. I'll see you guys next week, all right? See ya.
There, guys.